I don't even understand what is happening to me. That's what she said. Not in a therapy session, not written down in her journal. She said it to no one, just standing in her kitchen, out loud. Because she had been trying to just clean up, straighten up the kitchen for like 20 minutes, and she couldn't get it together. Maybe that's you right now. Nothing catastrophic has happened, but something is off. You feel behind on everything and motivated by nothing, all at the same time. Crazy. You are snapping at people you love, then turn around and feel guilty about it. 2 minutes later, you're tired, you can't go to sleep. You finally get some rest, but then you still don't feel rested, actually. And then, because you can't figure it out or explain it, you start blaming yourself and your actions and your thoughts and your lack of everything. That's how you get around to calling yourself lazy or unmotivated. Just a big mess. What if that is not what is happening to you? If you're new here, welcome. I'm Takia and this is Deep Work Haven. The channel is for women who are done being busy and ready to actually figure out what's going on underneath. We go a little deep on the topics here, but that's kind of the whole point. Let's talk about being depleted, being just empty. And not just from last week, or even last month for that matter. It could be years of holding everything together for everyone and nobody, including yourself, ever realizing that you should ask the question, are you okay? And I want to talk about that very thing because I think a lot of us have been calling it the wrong thing. So let me give you an actual definition that we can build from. So for the sake of this conversation, laziness is a lack of willingness. They're not bothered by it. In fact, they're unbothered. That's kind of the whole deal of laziness. While emotional exhaustion is something different. It's not about your willingness. It's more so about capacity, what you can hold. You want to do the thing and you care about doing the thing, but you just don't have it in you to complete or to engage it. The emotionally exhausted woman feels guilty. She's not checked out per se, but she's so checked in or dialed in that she's watching everything that she's known and used to fall apart. She's seeing in present time how she's falling short of something she used to succeed at. And it is slowly eating her alive for dramatic purposes. She wants to show up for the family, community, for her work, for herself. She misses who she was when things seem to be moving like they should be, in her perspective. She's lying awake at night. Maybe she fell asleep and woke up and then can't go back to sleep. So she's just there asking herself, why can't I just figure out what is happening and fix it and put it all back together? While lazy people on the other end, they are not bothered. They sleep just fine. So the first sign would be one that you'll probably dismiss or brush off as too small. But honestly, it might be one of the more important ones because it just deals with how everything now feels hard when it once felt easy to do. So for example, and I'm not talking about anything complicated here. I'm talking about simple things: cooking, running errands, returning a phone call, or a text to a family member or a friend, making decisions on things that really don't matter. But for whatever reason now, it's like a boulder in your brain and it just doesn't compute. You're standing there thinking, I know how to do this. Like literally, I know how to do this, but I can't for the life of me figure out how to get it done. Thing is, nothing is actually wrong with you. It's just that the internal resources that you used to pull from are now depleted. You're trying to go get a bucket of water from a well that is bone dry at this point and probably has been for a very long time. So essentially, there's nothing left for you to pull from to get those everyday things done, those mundane things done. Okay, so sign 2 might actually confuse you because you are resting at this point, but you wake up feeling exhausted. You're still exhausted. So here's one reason why. Physical exhaustion and emotional exhaustion are not the same thing. And if you think about what has been affecting you, you'll start to see some of these little signs along the way, but we just don't think about it. Physical tiredness needs sleep. Emotional exhaustion needs relief. Okay, so stay with me. Sleep can restore the body, but it cannot relieve the internal pressures that you've been carrying. It cannot help you put down the things that you weren't supposed to be carrying in the first place. And if you're the one holding it all together, and it doesn't have to be you only, maybe you're the main one that holds it all together. The schedules, managing the feelings, the mental load of remembering dates and sizes and trips. Do you have this? Do we have that? Do we have enough in our refrigerator? Did we pick up something that we're going to need for next week? Did we plan this trip for the summer or some other holiday? Did we pick up the gift? You can sleep 8 to 10 hours and it won't change a thing about all of those things that I just listed. None of that will have gotten lighter upon sleeping. And this third one, I really want you to really hear me on this one, because this one could be tough. You love your family, you love your people, but lately you've been snapping at everyone around you, maybe for things that didn't even bother you before. We're not talking about the regular, mom things, but it might be something extra at this point, something that really didn't bother you before. It's just grating on your nerves at this point. The noise, the small interruptions, you just can't get things done. All of that. And then the guilt of it all. You know you didn't mean to do it, but it's sort of like at this point, it's not within your control to not do it. What I want you to do is to stop and change up the language. That irritation goes back to that word I was telling you about, capacity. You have reached your bandwidth. You have no more to give. You just don't have the extra resources at this moment in time. So when you have nothing left to give, the things that you were able to absorb and let them bounce off, you're not letting anything bounce off at this point. You're absorbing all of its intensity, and it begins to feel like it's too much. And it's not that your family got worse or the things that they were doing increased. It's not any of that. It's not that you all of a sudden became a bad person. You have just exceeded what you can hold. And your system is letting you know, we're good, ma'am. We're good. Capacity filled. You go into the elevator and it says like this elevator can hold a certain amount of weight. Okay, well, you're the elevator and you can't hold any more weight. One more person comes onto that elevator and you all are gonna be in trouble because it's going down and not in the way you want. Not too long ago, a friend of mine DM'd me, and what she said was essentially what we're talking about here today. She said, I don't have enough me for me. That is what emotional exhaustion makes you say. That's how you feel. You don't have enough of you for your own self. You've made yourself available and given to everyone else to the point that the line that leads back to you has almost been erased. You literally took a pencil and erased the line with each and every overgiving moment. So it makes it difficult when you want to check in and say, okay, so what do I want? What do I think? What do I need? What do I actually enjoy? What makes me happy? Who am I outside of my many wonderful roles? Who am I outside of being needed? And it's just crickets. Honestly, you don't have the answer. And that's what adds to that feeling that something is missing. Something is just off and I can't put my finger on it. And number 5 is the fact that you just miss who you used to be. But I'm going to ask you something and I want you to sit with it for a brief moment before you answer. Really think about it and then give your answer. When you say you miss who you used to be, are you talking about you really missing yourself, or are you missing a version of yourself that was constantly in a survival state? Meaning she could survive anything. Are you missing that version of you, or are you truly missing who you are at your core? Because honestly, some and I've been guilty of this as well, are missing the efficiency that we once held because we adapted to things we weren't required to, or things we adapted to circumstances that we had to, but it allowed us to get things done. We were on top of everything. You are the strong one. You are the one that gets things done. You are dependable, etc., etc., etc. All the while, we were overriding our natural system. And in many instances, we felt that we had to, again, to survive the situation or the circumstances. We were doing everything, but we were not okay. We were not okay. We were just very, very good at pushing through when we needed. And that's not a version you should want to go back to. That's the version that got you here trying to figure out what is wrong with me, what is happening. So it makes you think, how do we even get here? Because it's not as if we just wake up one morning and just like, bam, let me go just rub myself racket. It's that sneak, almost like it sneaks up on you, where it's in slow increments as you're just going through your life. You're acquiring different tasks or responsibilities and obligations, and you're doing what you need to do or doing what you feel you have to do. And next thing you know, it's just this big, massive issue. And it's because you are the person that handles it all. You fix things before they need fixing. Sometimes for selfish reasons, so you don't have to deal with it later, but it is what it is. You hold a little space for everyone around you so that they can feel like they have someone. They have that person to go to. They have that outlet. You're the person that pushes through because the alternative feels like failure. It feels like you're failing somehow, some way. As irrational as that is, that's how it feels. And you do it really well. No one would even know a thing. That's how people stop noticing that you carrying or holding all of this, because it just becomes your personality. It just becomes the person that people know you to be. And you do it so effortlessly, looking that it's like, okay, she has it. But the real dangerous part is that you also stop realizing that it's now become a part of your everyday existence. You just normalize it. I think you honestly just forget about it because it is what it is, and you are moving from day to day, surviving the next day, surviving the next storm, surviving the next, putting out that fire, whatever the issue is. You just make it a part of who you are and what you do, and you tell yourself that this is how it is. This is just who I am. Really? Until the day when the Creator makes you take notice. Your body, your mind, your spirit, it can't take any more in without a complete and utter breakdown. But at that point, your body has been forced to say to you, no more. Not today, not tomorrow. And it just stops cooperating. And it's not a punishment. It's actually a blessing in disguise, whether you realize it or not. But to get to the point where you have to be forced to look in the mirror, that's a serious step. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what's actually going to help. I'm going to steer clear of some of the basics, like go take a bath, warm bubbly bath, set the lights, because literally that laundry load that's causing you a problem is still going to be there after you get up out that bath. So we're going to let that one go for a minute. But really, real restoration is going to need something deeper. So here's where I would begin. One, you need to know what you're dealing with. Start naming the things that you're carrying. Just start naming them. I'm talking about the emotional weight. Who depends on you? Who calls you because they need something? Who are you responsible for? What are the things you're responsible for outside the house? What are some things that you took on that nobody asked you to? We can't unload what we don't know we have. How are you going to put it down if you don't even know it's in your hand? And number two, you're going to stop measuring yourself against your survival abilities. We're not going to compare ourselves to that version that is handling all of these things, knocking down without even blinking, but they were in survival mode, hurting themselves. The fact that you could do everything doesn't mean that you were okay in that moment. So that woman holding everything together is not proof that it was appropriate for her to hold those things, that it was necessary for her to hold those things, that God wanted her to hold all those things. It just might mean she is a strong person, and strong people get depleted also. They need help too. Number 3, I want you to rebuild that capacity I talked about slowly. Don't start cramming more in just to. Honestly, I think sometimes we take on things just to see if we can. I don't know what that internal challenge is, but it needs to stop. You testing your toughness, your grit. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, we're talking about areas of space where we have acquired things that we don't necessarily have to acquire all to ourselves, but we've added them on to our back and, began trudging ourselves down the street in our everyday life, still holding on to all of that baggage. So that's what I'm talking about. But let me get back. I want you to try and return to yourself little bit by little bit, because if you go too fast, then we're adding something else. We're adding pressure, and the pressure is not going to help us heal and recover and regroup. What I'm talking about is more so reflection, actually checking in with yourself periodically. How am I feeling about this situation, or about what I'm doing? Am I doing it? Why am I doing it? What do I want to get out of this? If it's just blessings from Allah, or I want to help someone out, I want to get something, building something else within myself. It's noticing when not to just push through, but noticing when I need to step back or slow down or decrease. Setting boundaries where once maybe I didn't have them, or renew some boundaries. Is it still working for me? Do I need more or do I need less? Boundaries that may feel uncomfortable at first, but over time you realize that it was beneficial for you, and you ease into the comfort of that space that you're creating. Rest that is really rest, meaning you might sit and decide to do nothing. Just let yourself be, let your mind flow, think where it wants to think, drift off where it wants to drift off. Don't do anything that requires production. And I actually just finished, or I'm almost finished, sorry, maybe by the time this video comes out I might be finished, where I did 30 days of just sitting for 30 minutes doing nothing productive. And so I'll talk about that at a different time, but you might need to do something like that. The resting part is really so that you don't rush back into being productive, or rush back into your normal, or the normality that you created. So by the slowdown, you give yourself an opportunity to be aware, to catch any fallbacks, and or just to encourage yourself to keep moving forward. But you make yourself aware by giving yourself the time, giving your mind, your body, your spirit time to regroup enough to recognize what you're doing, be mindful of what you're doing, and continue. And this one I want you to think about is, when you make decisions, make them from an origin of actually wanting to, and not just because it needed to be handled. Okay, something like that, if it just needs to be handled, you might need to delegate that. Or if you have that luxury to delegate it, do so. But try your best, and I'm not saying that everyone is able to do that, but when you are, that's the point here. Because we know life is what it is, and we have these obligations, and sometimes there are things that we want, that are on us, and some things that we do not want. But when you come to that time period when you have the choice, that's when you need to come into action for yourself. You're not trying to become someone new. You're not trying to reinvent anything right now. You're just trying to realign. You're trying to get back to your natural self. And right now, that natural self might actually be foreign to you, because you don't really even remember what it was. But trying to become someone new and trying to realign or get back to your normal self, there are two different projects. And right now, your project is to get back to your normal self. All right, so I want you to ask yourself the question: is it that is that all feeling laziness? Or is that all feeling the weight of me carrying more than what I was supposed to carry. Because the answer that you're going to give yourself changes everything. It directs how you maneuver to come out of that feeling, to course correct that feeling. It changes what you do next. It changes how you talk to yourself and others around you. It changes whether or not you choose to keep pushing through harder and harder, or whether or not you really step back and exhale some of that off of your back. You're not going to get to that rebuilding stage by criticizing what's happening to you. You're in a state where you're trying to figure out what is happening to you. And that's going to require your patience. It's going to require love of yourself. It's going to require you to lean more into your faith that this too shall pass. Whether I understand it or not, I wasn't always in this place. I didn't always experience this feeling. So understand that you have to have faith that God's going to see you through this, however that may look. And it definitely doesn't have to look like we expect it to. And that's even a separate conversation, honestly. But you're not going to strong talk yourself back into becoming who you were. You're going to have to understand what got you to that point. You're going to have to understand what depleted that reserve, that internal reserve, what absorbed all of your extra space. And then you want to decide that you do not want to return back to that place. Because once you come to the conclusions, once you face it head on, you have to make that decision that I'm not going to go down this path again. I'm going to utilize the tools to prevent that from happening. This conversation needs to be in everyone's sister circles, family circles, private circles. You know, it's a conversation topic that's affecting too many of us that we're not delving into and really analyzing what can we do to prevent, that cycle from continuing. Check out these other videos I have. Come back to the channel. Consider subscribing to the channel. Spread the word and come back for the next conversation. See you in the next one.